All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations to you, sincere and hopeful elect Akim, pushing the word of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, in spirit and in truth. Ma'at, Arabayim, Arabai, Alap, that is to say 144,000 in the Lashawan Kodash. All right, that's what we are striving to be a part of, hoping to be delivered as an Israelite, according to your father's lineage, and make it on a chariot. All right, that is initially why you put your hand to the plow. Okay, so I want to get to this article from CBC News, which is a Canadian news outlet. And it's dated November 28th, 2025. So this is last month. And I had actually seen this on the news, on the TV. So as you see, it says some commercial lobster fishers say indigenous treaty fishing threatens stocks. Government memo says otherwise. Okay. So the ones doing the complaining, all right, the commercial lobster fishers, which first and foremost, you should not be fishing for no lobsters. Israelite, Edomite, no, what that you can be heathen, you can be Israelite. You should not be fishing for no fucking lobsters, man. Okay, lobsters are not a lawful food to eat. Okay, lobsters are not lawful according to the scriptures. Okay. Matter of fact, hold on, let me see something real quick. All right. Let me see. Leviticus 11. And let's jump down to verse 9. Leviticus 11 and 9, it says, "These shall you eat of all that are in the waters." All right, so anything that comes from the waters, this is what you're allowed to eat. "Whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat." Now, lobsters, all right, you find those in the ocean, in the seas. Now, they don't have scales and fins. Okay? They don't have scales and fins. So, you know, you got fish that you can find in a lake, find in the ocean that have scales and fins, find in the sea that have scales and fins that are lawful. All right? In all three of those bodies of water, so to say. Now, a lobster, it don't matter where you find that lobster at, it's a shellfish. It's not lawful according to the Bible. So you ain't what purpose is there in fishing for them things, you know, if you can't eat them, which we know that people actually eat that shit, you know, eat those blessed creatures, you know, they ain't did nothing wrong. You know, they doing they duty to clean the ocean. All right. But you're not supposed to be, you know, the only reason why someone would be fishing for lobster is to eat it or generate some profit by selling it. All right, a fishmonger. All right, a seller of fish. Verse 10, it says, "And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you." Okay, so once again, "And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you." All right, so eating lobster is an abomination. They shall be, verse 11, "They shall be even an abomination unto you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, but ye shall have their carcass in abomination. Whosoever, whatsoever, so like it, hath no fins nor scales in the waters, that shall be an abomination unto you." All right, so If it ain't got scales and fins, you ain't supposed to eat it. All right, so lobster is not lawful. Okay, so let me jump back to this. All right, so once again, the title says some commercial lobster fishers, all right, which are the Edomites, okay, say indigenous treaty, all right, so a treaty that the forefathers of these Edomites, they made this treaty with these indigenous people. All right, remind you that Canada belongs to the natives anyways. Okay, but they had to make some treaty with some colonizers. All right, so once again, it says, say indigenous treaty fishing threatens stocks. Government memo says otherwise. So they're complaining that, really Esau don't want nothing, that they themselves took part in or signed in if it's actually beneficial to the Israelites, in this case the Gadites, all right, up there in Nova Scotia. If it's beneficial to them, despite them making this treaty, they want the treaty done away with. But on the other hand, things like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, all right, Declaration of Independence and all that, with the current state of the government here in America shifting toward all that stuff being a bunch of useless, worthless nonsense, all right, that the presidential cabinet is not even upholding. The average Babylonian, all right, Edomite Babylonian, they're they got their panties in a bunch, crying and boo-hooing, oh, the Constitution, I got rights, all this crap. All right, in a crash out, when it comes to their rights being taken away because of these treaties or whatever you want to call them, these bills, these Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and Constitution, but when it comes to the Israelites, it's a double standard. Okay, so reading some of this article, it says report challenges industry allegations lobster is risked due to Mi'kmaq illegal sales. So they're trying to say that the Mi'kmaq tribe up there in Nova Scotia is selling these lobsters illegally. All right, the nerve of Esau, man, the nerve of Esau. It says wearing a sharp 3-piece black suit and his hair neatly coifed, Matthew Cope looks nothing like a laid-back lobster fisherman at the helm of Mystique Lady as he climbs the stairs into the courthouse in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Cope would rather be out on the water where the weight of his legal battle dissipates for a while, but that's what landed him in court in the first place. He takes a deep breath and reminds himself whom he's fighting for. I want my children to be able to exercise their rights, he said. I want them to be able to work hard and fish and be able to make a living out of it. Cope, who is Mi'kmaq, is facing federal charges for doing what Canada's highest court said he has every right to do. All right, so the highest court in Canada says that he has every right to do this. Okay, fish for a moderate livelihood. All right, it says, but Cope's fighting extends beyond the courtroom. He and other First Nations fishers who sell their catch without government authorization face allegations from some in the commercial industry that they're fueling crime and threatening lobster stocks. fueling crime. Wow. Okay. So what that means in a Edomite's language, all right, their verbiage, okay, they're trying to say that the profits that he's getting from selling these lobsters is being spent on drugs or weapons or something illegal. All right, a bunch of just hearsay. You know, that's how Esau gets down, man. That's how Esau gets down. Okay, but meanwhile, these lobster fishermen on the Edomite side, you know, they doing all kind of wickedness, man. All right, complete hypocrisy. You know, that's the nature of Esau, to just be a complete hypocrite. It says, and once again, both of them is going off because you ain't supposed to be fishing for no damn lobster anyways. Okay, it says the Fifth Estate investigated the legitimacy of these allegations and found federal government research does not support the accusation that lobster is at risk due to what it considered to be illegal trade. All right, so you know the Fifth Estate, which is like it's like a little segment where they do like their own little private investigations as far as up in Canada with certain things going on, and you know, get to the bottom of the story or whatever the case may be. So they even came to the conclusion that it's just a bunch of BS. Okay, it says the investigation included an analysis of dozens of court records and interviews with lobster industry insiders, including an illicit player in southwestern Nova Scotia. Okay. There's more to this article, but it's a lengthy read. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and read all of this. But yeah, so just showing you, you know, Esau is a damn sore loser, man. Esau is a sore loser. Okay, take your ass to court saying that, you know, you're doing something illegal. All right. Matter of fact, hold on, let me see something real quick. All right, yeah, I wanted to pull this up on DeepSeek. So this is I had actually looked this up a couple days ago. It says Court of Canada's R versus Marshall decision. It says the R versus Marshall decision from the Supreme Court of Canada is a landmark ruling that affirmed the treaty rights of Indigenous peoples to hunt, fish, and gather in pursuit of a moderate livelihood. The table below summarizes the key aspect of the two related Supreme Court decisions, often referred to as Marshall number 1 and Marshall number 2. Okay. So core issue. It says whether Donald Marshall Jr. had a treaty right to fish or for eel and sell them without a federal license. All right. Marshall number 2. So this is September 1917, September 17, 99, November 17, 1999. It says a motion for a rehearing asking the court to clarify the scope of its first decision. All right. Key finding. The 1760 through 61 peace and friendship treaties included a right to trade for necessaries, which translate to a moderate right to earn a moderate livelihood. The federal fishing regulation infringed on this right and were inoperative in this case. Okay. It says the treaty right is a collective right to fish, hunt, and gather and trade the products to obtain a moderate livelihood. It applies to the Mi'kmaq Maliseet, if I'm pronouncing that correct, and Pescotomucus Kati nations, all right, in the Maritimes and Gasep region. All right, so it says the treaty right is not absolute. The federal government can regulate it for conservation or other compelling and substantial public objectives. So one of the reasons why the federal government would regulate it, okay, is if, what was being fished, in this case, the lobster, if they needed to be conserved, these Mi'kmaq is fishing them damn near to existence, so we got to put out a regulation to preserve these lobsters, but the federal government ain't did that. All right, so you just got Edomites just mad at Jake for surviving. All right, so this is Job 24 and 1. It says, why, seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty, do they that know him not see his days? All right, so in NLT it says, verse 1, why doesn't the Almighty bring the wicked to judgment? Why must the godly wait for him in vain? Okay, so that's we ask that the Lord bring judgment on the ungodly, all right, which is Esau in general. Okay, it says, some remove the landmarks and violently take away flocks and feed thereof. They drive away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. So let me read this in the NLT. All right, now this is in particular talking about, livestock, on land. But you can apply this same concept to, to the fishing rod. All right, what you see Esau attempting to do to Jacob there in Nova Scotia. Okay, it says evil people steal land by moving the boundary marks. Okay, and if them Edomites had their way, they would, quarantine, parts of the sea off, which they do already, but to where Jake wouldn't have no access to it. To even go fish. All right, if they knew the hot spots where all these lobsters would be at, okay, they would make it a area that they ain't able to these natives wouldn't even be able to fish. That's how Esau get down. Okay, so evil people steal land by moving the boundary marks. They steal livestock and put them in their own pastures. They take the orphan's donkey and demand the widow's ox as security for a loan. All right, end up in some financial troubles or whatnot. You owe the IRS. They'll come and take everything you got, everything in your house that they can auction off. They'll literally do that. These entertainers, rappers and shit that are back in the early 2000s getting all this money, 90s getting money, all right, end up going bankrupt, losing everything they got, can't pay on their mansion. The IRS will come, and they ain't been paying their taxes. The IRS will come and take everything they got, man. Walk the couch out. They'll help you move out. You don't got to lift a finger, They're going to... all your plaques, your awards, they taking all that. Okay, that's how Esau get down, man. And if those Edomites in the court up there in with this situation we reading about, if they could, they'll take them Gadites for everything they got. Verse 4, it says the poor are pushed off the path, the needy must hide together for safety. All right, and ultimately, the needy that understand they're needy, all right, is ultimately the elected Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because we know that we need a savior. All right, brothers depend on one another, on one another, The body, the brotherhood. Okay. So we are the needy, and also, as it's stated in verse 1, we are the godly that, we're not waiting in vain, but Esau being a vain individual and seeing everything he's doing, all right, and how the Most High is long suffering, the Most High, he don't operate on our time frame, all right. So it can seem like, hey, the Lord is taking forever to come back, but when the Lord actually returns, it's gonna be like, man, that was fast, right on time, So yeah, we to escape Esau's fucking his his trickery and that's why you gotta be tapped into the spirit, all right, to the brotherhood, to the body, because there's safety, all right. Now let me grab Habakkuk getting into how Esau, man, just unsatiable. All right, they got to have everything. They got to control everything. All right. Now, this is talking about, Esau, Edom. All right, as a nation. But I'm gonna apply it through the spirit. In particular to those Edomites, because all Edomites are the same, man. Those Edomites up there in Canada. All right. So this is Habakkuk 2:4. It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith." So these Edomites is complaining about rights that even the federal government in Canada recognize the Gadites up there having in Nova Scotia. The federal government acknowledges the rights that these Native Americans, so-called, have to be able to fish for a moderate livelihood. Yet, the spirit of the so-called white man, the Edomite, is so jacked up with spiritual scoliosis. All right, Esau got spiritual scoliosis. His spirit is not upright within him. That he gotta lie and say that the prophets generated from the Gadites selling that lobster is used for illicit purposes, and you know what I'm saying? That's the nature of a devil, to just flat out lie like that. Verse 5, it says, "Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people." But the point I want to focus in on in this verse here is Esau's, his desire being as hell, all right, and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied. That's the spirit of the so-called white man. His desire is as hell, meaning it's unsatiable. He can't be content with, he's not content with sharing, so to say. All right. That's the one thing Esau hates to do is to share. All right. He can give you a jacked up portion, say some cattle. He'll take majority of the cattle and leave you with the runt, the lambs, put you on a reservation like he did the natives, kill off. Put you on a food desert, man. Because that's all them reservations are, is food deserts. Put you on a food desert and still try to complain about, you being hooked on drugs when he the one that gives you the drugs. That's the devil we dealing with, man. Unsatiable, man. Okay, he wants to have everything, and really, he just wants all Israelites to be erased from the record books, man. Okay, that's the nature of Esau Edom, man. All right, let me grab Sirach 12 and 10, because you know the reason why people even have to just deal with dealing with Esau and him being a demon is because of our own wrongdoings. All right, because of us not following Yahweh Shem Shai. All right, keeping the laws and honoring the Heavenly Father and venturing off into different religions and idol worship and all that. All right, so as punishment, the Lord set up Esau to be over us, and be a nuisance. Okay. All right, to be that sword. Psalm 17 and 13. It says, "Arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword." All right. So Esau Edom is the sword of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. He's the instrument, because everybody on the planet Earth is controlled by Yahweh Shem Yahushai by way of angels. Okay, so for the left-hand side, which is spearheaded by Amalek, all right, the so-called tiny top, small hats, they have a direct connection with the spiritual demon Satan. All right, the whole nation of Edom, but it's double time with with Amalek. Okay, so they're the sword. The Lord literally gave Satan free reign to, just jack up the Israelites, man. And that's what you see happening in the earth. Verse 14, it says, "For men which are thy hand, O Yahweh, from men which are thy hand, O Yahweh, from men of the world which have their portion in this life." All right, and they sure do have their portion in this life, and they want your portion too, which is why they up there complaining about the Gadites in Nova Scotia, exercising their treaty rights. All right, it says, "In whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure, they are full of children and leave the rest of their substance to their babes." All right, now that industry, usually like with fishing, it'll be generational. Okay, so some Edomite, the individual in the article, at the beginning of the article, well, no, that was Jake Salakia, but whatever Edomite, and notice that they'll put a Jake in the article, but ain't going to Esau. All right, they ain't gonna put Esau in an article like that. But anyways, whatever Edomite or Edomites, all right, because when I actually watched the video on YouTube, there's a bunch of Edomites complaining. Men, women, they actually get into fights and getting bats pulled on them, and what I'm saying, like down at the dock, and all kind of crazy stuff be happening. So a lot of those fishermen, those Edomite fishermen, that they gonna pass down that company and that a way of life to their children, man, which is what we just read, man. Okay, the latter part of verse 14. "They are full of children and leave the rest of their substance to their babes." All right. "As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness." All right. So that's what we hope for. That's what we waiting on. to awake with the likeness of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Okay? To put on incorruption. All right? To become immortals. That's what we are waiting on. All right? So, Sirach 12 and 10, it says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. All right? Now, it might have taken time, but you know, especially for those Gadites up in Nova Scotia, if at any point they thought, you know, their treaties and way of life was upheld, and they're finding out now that they were wrong. Okay, now they might have known that the whole time, you know, that them devils, you know, was envious or mad, you know, at their you know, federal rights, the treaty rights. But you know, that spirit is really being put on display, you know, by Esau, not just here in America, just all over the world. You know, the Edomites is acting an ass toward Israelites in particular, man. Okay, so you know, I'm gonna wrap it up with that. You know, I just wanted to bring out that article, man. Abaratazah, this was an edifying lesson. Until next time, I say shalom.